Hey, fellow foodies. Sorry this one is a little bit later in the day than usual. The holidays have been quite busy, as I'm sure you've all felt as well. This week I interviewed the lovely Luke Zahm. Luke owns the Driftless Cafe in Wisconsin and is the host of the PBS show Wisconsin Foodie, where he delves deep into the behind the scenes stories of, well, your food. We talked cheese, we talked food sustainability, and we talked traveling because Luke was just filming in the incredible city of Tokyo. I'd like to issue a trigger warning to listeners for this episode because there is a portion of this podcast where Luke recalls filming about a highly sensitive and serious topic, a mass shooting. I hope you enjoy this episode and please join me in welcoming Luke Zahm.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Thank you so much for coming on. I'm super excited to have you and great to see you again. We saw each other a few weeks.
It's good to see you too.
For listeners, we actually met in Wisconsin a few weeks back when I was doing a journalism trip. But I would love if we could start by getting kind of into your background. When did cooking become a passion for you?
Sure. Cooking became a passion for me. I think, honestly, I realized that cooking was really important to me around the time that I was searching for my own identity as a human, quite frankly. So I would say my early 20s, actually even late teens. I grew up in a really small community in southwestern Wisconsin, population 745. I graduated with 23 kids. Yeah, it's teeny tiny. I graduated with 23 kids, 17 of whom I started kindergarten with, and in a very, very small school. And I was constantly searching for this identity, who I was and who I could be in the world. And about the only person that I had ever really seen come out of my small community that had quote unquote made it in the world was a music producer and rock and roll drummer by the name of Butch Vig. And Butch, when I was it was 1991, and this album Nirvana Nevermind came out. And it kind of blew my face off. It was one of those moments, those seminal moments that you have in life where you're like, oh my gosh, this speaks to the core of who I am. And I need to understand more about this because it was, one of those pieces that I adopted for myself. And I actually started college in Chicago to be a recording engineer because I thought that was the closest way to becoming Butch Vig. And so I found myself for the first time in my life, Olivia, in a Whole Foods. And it was one of those pieces that I had obviously heard about, the Whole Foods phenomenon, but it was 1998 and I was broke. And I was homesick, living in a place that was all concrete and, just really, really looking for that sense of who I was and how I fit into the world. And before I left for college, the CEO of this small cooperative organic dairy had given me stacks of free product coupons. And my mom had worked at the cooperative since probably the mid 90s, maybe even a little before that. So when kids from the area graduated high school, they'd be given this gift by the CEO. And so I went into this Whole Foods with all these free Organic Valley coupons. And I walked in, and for the first time in my life, I saw an Organic Valley cheese display. And when you're from a town of 745 kids or 745 people, you're constantly trying to explain where you're at in the world. So usually for me, it was between Minneapolis and Chicago. And, the identity politics of that are pretty vague. If you knew Wisconsin, maybe I could say between La Crosse and Madison, two other municipalities in the state that people might know of. But I walked into this Whole Foods and I picked up a package of cheese, and on the back of it said Lafarge, Wisconsin, my hometown. And it was like this
Oh.
massive wave of all the feels kind of came through my whole body, and I still remember it. And sometimes, I still get pretty emotional because that for me was the moment that I had that initial opportunity to understand who I was and where I was from
Hmm.
and why food meant so much to me. Because I knew those farmers. I knew the people who were making that delicious, nutritious food and selling it through Organic Valley. And like that was kind of my full circle moment. Everything that I had learned prior to that, growing up with a garden, growing up with a family that, we hunted, we would buy, like half a
Hmm.
steer, half a pig, something like that. And so cooking at home, because there weren't restaurants really, was a very large priority in our family. It kind of really opened my eyes to this connective power of food that I experienced. From that point forward, I kind of like I tried the whole recording engineer thing and realized, you know what, I'm not actually that interested in this. And then I transferred to the University of
Hmm.
Wisconsin and I got a degree there with the intention of being an attorney. But then as I was working in college, I was working in
Hmm.
food. And that for me, when I got to the end of my undergraduate and the start of law school, just took on so much more weight. And then finally, I just decided, you know what? I'm just going to do this. It was the connection to the farmers and the local producers that kind of gave me the inspiration to build my life and career on the backs of their
Hmm.
hard work.
Absolutely. So, did you go to law school as well, or you said you started law school and then you left?
Yeah, started and then promptly dropped out.
Yeah. I thought about law school for a hot second, and then I was like,
Yeah.
me.
And I think the thing for me, like with law school, it was just kind of apparent very quickly that I was going to spend my life trying to mitigate other people's money problems,
Hmm.
and money is never. And I'm going to declare my own privilege here as a white man in America and say that money has never really been my mo.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
it's makes life a lot easier, but at the same time, it's not why I get up in the morning and do what I do.
Right.
And I didn't want that to be the focus of why I was on the planet. You get one shot at this,
Hmm.
to quote Eminem. And
Hmm.
I didn't really, I don't want to spend my time chasing the almighty dollar around, trying to find meaning in that. It was much more advantageous for me to find a platform and kind of just work my way through it.
Do you think that ideal kind of stems from coming from such a small hometown that you can kind of appreciate your relationships and maybe the where your food is coming from more versus coming from somewhere like a city or somewhere maybe more populated?
Yeah, absolutely. The thing that actually strikes me now as I look backwards,
Hmm.
I didn't grow up with the blinders on that I think so many people in the American economy do about where your food comes from and the
Hmm.
processes that it takes to get it to your table.
Hmm.
Growing up with the garden, like we didn't have food that was shrink wrapped. We didn't have grocery stores like Trader Joe's or Whole Foods. Not to take anything away from those, but
Hmm.
like would put good high quality food in front of you that you had access to. It was very much an intensive process for us as a family to really, capture the harvest of the seasons and like live in that moment. And
Hmm.
our diet definitely reflected that. It definitely opened my eyes, and I think the money piece. I don't know. I guess as some people just aren't as motivated by money, and I can say now at this point in my career, having had a lot of the experiences that I've been able to accumulate as a chef, I can see that money, it does play a huge part in how people eat, specifically in America, where
Right.
food can be expensive, but
Hmm.
it doesn't have to. There are cultures around the world that that really celebrate food as this common connection because everybody eats.
Hmm.
If we're lucky, we eat 3 times a day, maybe more. But there's this beautiful connective power in food that kind of reduces all of us to an equal playing field. And I love that medium. I mean, that's a medium for
Hmm.
growth and revolution and change, however you want to frame it.
Exactly. Yeah, no, food is one of those things that just connects everyone pretty much on an even playing field, like you said. But I'm kind of curious too, because like when I go into a Trader Joe's, I don't really think about what I'm eating, what I'm doing. There's this like stigma around food coming from fresh organic ingredients being more expensive. Is that
Mhm.
something you run into a lot?
Yeah, I think that is a huge obstacle, specifically in the American food system. Other places around the world, it's kind of just the standard. They're not going to raise their
Mhm.
food with pesticides, herbicides, and
Right.
that is just commonly accepted. But in America, it's commodified and it does carry a higher financial burden for people to walk in and like buy it. And I understand that there are so many obstacles to that.
Hmm.
Even the placement of those particular grocery stores, you usually don't find those in impoverished neighborhoods or neighborhoods that are kind of on their come up track. So I feel
Hmm.
like you know, doing the work of making good food accessible to everyone is very, very important. And while I say all of this, I want to be really, really clear that I don't have any problem whatsoever with conventional farming methods. There are so many people producing food on so many different levels and spectrums that I think it's just really important to try and establish a relationship in whatever way we can with some of the people producing our food because it gives it so much more context and a narrative storyline that allows us to actually trust, right? That
Mm.
big huge word that sometimes gets so scary. To be able to trust that food and those farmers and producers who are making some of the best food available to them, the resources that they hold, and the lands that they choose to farm.
Right, right. And that's kind of what you're trying to portray with Wisconsin Foodie as well. So the
Yeah,
premise of the show is to kind of discover the stories behind the foods that we eat, pretty much.
exactly. And build identity. Build identity
Mhm.
through that. I think that there are so many underrepresented stories, specifically, when people have this overview of the Upper Midwest being, mainly white.
Mhm.
Having this kind of homogenous culture that I've had executives from the Food Network refer to as culinary flyover country, which it for a kid like me from the upper Midwest who's constantly trying to punch up and say like, hey, no, there are cultural stories here that need to be observed. There are pieces of our farming and agricultural community and our food community that aren't getting the representation that they need. Wisconsin Foodie definitely provides this platform to be able to
Mhm.
share some of those connective stories. And again, going back to that medium of food as being this connected medium, since the dawn of humankind, humans have been sharing culture and tradition through food since we emerged from the
Mhm.
cave. It's we wouldn't be where we
Right.
are without that cultural, sharing. And so to try and reduce the dissonance, Wisconsin Foodie really, really helps with that.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. It's so interesting that people sometimes, if you're growing up on the East Coast or the West Coast, you think those are the only places that exist when
Yeah.
there's literally so much in between.
Yeah, there's a
So
whole
many places to go.
yeah, there's a whole America in between it. It's wild.
Yeah. Can you believe that? New
Yeah.
York and LA, and there's other places.
Yeah, but New York and LA are great too. Don't get me wrong.
They are. They are. I am a strong proponent of both.
Is there a story or person that you kind of recall speaking to in Wisconsin foodie that kind of sticks out to you or you remember that you would be able to share?
Yeah, of course. I think, and you're gonna have to forgive me. I'm coming off of we just filmed in Tokyo for 10 days, Tokyo and across
Oh
Japan.
my gosh.
So I
Let's
am,
talk about
yeah, I've got kind of like the oatmeal for brains thing going on when you've jumped 10 time zones and like are trying to
yeah.
recover. But yeah, no, a few years ago, last August, we were invited to do a profile on the Sikh Temple of Wisconsin, located in Oak Creek, which is just outside of Milwaukee.
Hmm.
And the real impetus for it was the 10-year anniversary of Wisconsin's most horrific mass shooting. It was the largest mass shooting.
Hmm.
And what had happened 10 years prior is a gunman had walked into the Sikh temple and
Hmm.
opened fire. He had determined through all sorts of terrible inferences that the Sikh temple was actually a holding place for Islamic radicalists.
Oh wow.
And,
Okay.
the thing that was so compelling about the Sikh temple is the Sikh community practices this act. It's called langar. And langar is the availability of food at any time of day for anyone, no
Hmm.
matter what your race, creed, religion, whatever that looks like. They will serve food, and it's to be taken. It's received as a gift, and you sit on the
Hmm.
floor and you break bread with whomever happens to be in the langar hall at that moment. Well, the day of the massacre, the Sikh parishioners were in the Gurdwara, which is the word for their temple,
Hmm. Okay.
and they're so open to having people come in. Like the principles of a Sikh Gurdwara are you have entrances and exits at the four cardinal directions: north, south, east, and west. And so,
Okay.
from all directions, all walks of humanity, people come in, and the parishioners were basically putting together langar for that afternoon celebration when a gunman came in and he
Hmm.
started opening fire. He ended up eventually slaying 8 people and then took his
Oh
own
my
life in the
god.
parking lot. And
That,
the people who were actually slain were a lot of the the keepers of the food. And because food is such an important connective medium in that culture, a few of the parishioners who were making rice for that afternoon couldn't they couldn't stay hidden because they were worried about scorching the rice. So they came out of this closet in the kitchen where they were hiding to turn it off because it was so important to them to have food that was of the most exceptional quality. So as a
wow.
television host, and walking in to do the actual production of this television episode, first and foremost, like I always say that my job is to number one bring energy, right? So like I want people to be
Hmm.
curious. I'm naturally curious as a chef. Growing up in this really small place, the whole world is brand new to me. But when I walked in and I saw on the doorframe of the temple a bullet hole that the Sikh community had
Oh
actually
my god.
petitioned the FBI to keep. They didn't want to erase the
Hmm.
memory of the tragic loss that day. Below it is this little teeny tiny brass placard.
Hmm.
It has 3 words inscribed into it, and it's very simple. It just simply states, "We are one." And that
Wow.
through this common connected humanity, regardless of where you're from, how you feel in the Sikh community, we all share the intrinsic qualities of being human beings. And the way that that's expressed in that community is through love. And that love is completely reflected in their food. and their ability to break bread with anyone, anytime. So coming in 10 years later, I was super nervous about like, okay, how do I bring energy?
Yeah.
How do we tell a story of connection and love
Mhm.
and growth in the face of this senseless tragedy? And so we had 3 days to do this taping. And the first day, it's all about building trust and respect, which is, I think the hallmark for working with cultures that maybe are not as common to us. So, I approach it with tremendous humility. They asked us to go into the temple. All I ever want to do is follow the cultural customs to ensure
Mhm.
that, I'm representing the fact that I am here to do the good work and not be
Mhm.
standoffish. And so the
Absolutely.
second day, it was so beautiful. I was in the kitchen with like 15 Sikh women, and it ranged from like high school kids to grandmothers. And we were making
Oh,
samosa. We were putting together like 2,000 samosa for this event. And
oh,
so
that's so cute.
it was so great. They stuck me on the microwave
Yeah.
station at first, and I'm like, okay, I can do
Oh.
this one. And I'm talking to people in the kitchen, and the mood is lightening, and they're all kind of laughing because they have this wacky American in there, who's like trying to just get people to at least loosen up to the point where we can make progress in the conversation. And then they
Mhm.
invited me over into the samosa making line. And so I'm standing there with all these women, and I start to catch this vibe, Olivia, where I could tell they're kind of laughing at me because the younger members of the community are like watching me, like, and so this really, really old lady next to me, she looks at me and she's like, "You don't speak Punjabi by chance, do you?" And I was like, "No." And she's like, "Good." And so then like it was an uproar of laughter. But after that
Oh.
whole process of being able to show them that yes, I was there to help in this process, I was there to do the work.
Mhm.
This amazing sensation kind of came over me, and that was this sensation of just love. And they talked all the time about how they express their love through food and how food is this amazing connector. And after that taping, my life hasn't been the same. I approach every single opportunity I can with the idea of bringing people together. And sometimes it is over the really nasty bits of humanity. We're able to connect and
Mhm.
find that common ground. But always, 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 if I have food as a medium, I know that I can lean on that and create a better understanding for a world with less dissonance and more love.
Wow. That sounds like a really life-changing experience. I would have cried
I did.
right
I
there.
did.
Yeah.
I've been known to break it down on
Yeah, when you
camera.
yeah, that bullet holes, that takes a lot of strength for them to have to walk by that every single day. And but I think you kind of sometimes, I mean, this is a layered statement, but see the worst of humanity so then you can come together and kind of intertwine together and just realize, hey, we're all the same,
Yeah.
and food is the common denominator.
Totally. I mean, it's you can't know beauty if you don't know pain, and
Right.
I think specifically in America right now, we have ways of manufacturing dissonance and like obstacles to connection, but food
Hmm.
happens to be the best, I think, medium to breaking those obstacles down and creating a more unified version of who we are moving forward.
Exactly. Yeah. And I was trying to, when I was in Wisconsin, I was kind of looking around at all the kitchens, and something that really struck me when I was there was the farmers market that you guys have,
Yeah.
the producer only one. I was just smiling like ear to ear walking around the entire time because everyone just felt so calm and peaceful, and everyone was just happy and sharing food and talking to the farmers. And it was just like one of those serene moments that I just like, you have to kind of step back and realize the stresses in your life don't matter as much as you think they do, you
Totally.
know?
Yeah, the Dane County Farmers Market is a vibe. It really is. And
Mhm.
without that, I mean, I know that when I was starting my journey in the culinary world as a professional, I would go to the farmers market because there would be younger farmers there that I grew up with who would drive,
Mhm.
the 2.5 hours from like my home area to be able to sell there, and like seeing how connected and in love with the
Um,
world they really were, by being able
mhm.
to share their potatoes, or whatever it was that really gave their farm identity. It was nothing short of miraculous. And again, it goes back to that idea of knowing where your food comes from and some of these producers
Mhm.
that closes the gap for a lot of us about going to the market and being able to purchase an anonymous vegetable or piece of fruit or cheese or whatever it might be.
Mhm.
When you know the storylines and the people who are definitely toiling to make that happen, it really creates this beautiful conversation around
Mhm.
just the interconnectedness that we all share.
Yeah, yeah. And this is a little off topic, but you are an incredible storyteller.
Oh, thanks.
I know that's your job.
Thank you.
But I just wanted to throw it out there. You're very encapsulating. Like,
That's awesome. I'm glad.
yeah.
I feel you know sometimes I wonder, like, without the medium of being able to serve people small bites, or at least eat their way
Mhm.
through my stories, if they really do work. But I appreciate
Mhm.
that compliment, and I have no plans on
Yeah.
stopping the stories because I feel like we're just getting started.
Yeah, I think so too. There's always a story for everyone, no matter where you look.
That's right.
I want to actually get your opinion because the show and Wisconsin in general is very focused on sustainability. How do you think chefs can decrease food waste
Yeah.
where it doesn't like affect creativity or flavor kind of thing?
Totally. Decreasing food waste, having just traveled to Japan, as I indicated, one of the things,
Mhm.
and it's kind of a running joke in Japanese culture, like when the Americans walk in, the portion sizes increase exponentially. Because we're known for, like, we totally feed bag it, and that's cool. I don't want to take
No.
anything away from anybody, because every once in a while, like, you just want to sit down and feel that sense of comfort. But
Hmm.
portion sizes in that country specifically, it's a lot of like smaller bites, and they have rich cultural traditions of like smaller plates, but like lots of the smaller plates that I think
Hmm.
in Western culture, even if it's the idea of reframing how we plate food and a lot of the foods that we use, we can do a better job. I think food waste is one of those pieces that we kind of get caught up in because there's a perception of value. And for those of us with restaurants, we're always fighting to keep restaurant diners coming back, and so we feel like we have to throw the
Hmm.
kitchen sink at them, and then they walk away stuffed, and maybe they feel satiated, or like, this was an incredible
Hmm.
buy. But until we kind of shift the focus and the lens of the American dining system to really like filling us up physically as opposed to filling us up emotionally, I think you'd start to see a
Hmm.
lot of progress in that way. And plus, I mean, sometimes we can just be wasteful. There's this idea that, like, well, I will use all these ingredients and I'll cook it down into an essence. And when you're doing that as a professional chef, there is definitely a lot of loss in that. And sometimes it's
Hmm.
hard to justify the prices for restaurants that really look to do good, specifically in the food sustainability and waste categories. But like, those are the restaurateurs that you really want to support, or at least I really want to support. I don't want to speak for you, Olivia, because maybe feed bagging it is
Yeah.
where you live. Like, I don't know, but like
You know,
you didn't strike me as that, but like, it's cool.
no.
Um,
I tend to skip the fast food and all of
Yes.
that, but you need to indulge every once in a
That's
while,
right.
you know?
That's right. You got to have a little bit of darkness with the light and a little bit of lightness with the dark. So everything in moderation,
Mhm.
including moderation itself, is a wise way to kind of approach it. But I really think I saw a statistic a few years ago that like 46% of all food in the United States, food produced here, ends up being wasted.
Okay.
And that is,
Oh,
yeah,
gosh.
it's wild. And a lot.
That's
It
incredible.
is, and a lot of it ends up, if it's not perfect, it doesn't ever see the shelves of your grocery store. If it's not first quality, you're not going to have ample opportunity to find it. So I really think that
Mhm.
Americans can do right by the food system and do a lot of work
Mhm.
on decreasing that waste by going to a farmer's market. And maybe if that kale's got a couple bug bites in it, you're going to cook it down anyway. Or you're going to put it in a smoothie. Or you're
Right.
going to like find an application. Not a lot of people are eating like raw kale out there. Not because it's not delicious, but it's a little toothy, whatever.
Well,
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to lie to kick it here, Livia. If you don't like kale, that's cool too.
yeah. I actually have kale in my fridge right now, and I'm incorporating it into my diet a
Yeah.
little bit because I think I need more greens
You
in my life. But I'm trying to like it more.
Exactly. The trick to cooking with kale is to make it kind of not taste like kale.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. I like arugula and I like spinach, but kale has been a tricky one for
Yeah,
me.
yeah. You got to saute the heck out of it. I usually like it with a little bit of lemon juice, salt, black pepper, chili flake, onion and garlic. Just
Okay.
kind of cook it down, and it's salty, and then you get that acidity, and then the chili kind of kicks in. It carries it through. Kale is one of those staple ingredients that we seem to have more than our fair share of here in the upper Midwest. So I learned early in my
Mhm.
career I better embrace that one because it's not going away.
I'll get rid of the kale smoothies, but I'll take your advice and I'll do
All right,
that.
best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I want to go back to your advice on portion control because I think that's really interesting. Because when a lot of people go to Europe as well, they're like, oh, I lost so much weight. And there's a lot of different factors that are incorporated in that, walking a lot, whatever it is. But I don't think they realize how much smaller their portions are there.
Right?
Like even just a pasta
Yeah.
dish, it's probably what, a fourth, a third, I don't know. But like, and then you're satiated and then you're done and that's
Yeah.
it. Instead of
Just going ham on
the
it.
plate being literally the size of yeah. like here it's like the plate's the size of my head and I feel like I have to finish it all because I don't want to
Yeah.
waste it. But it's literally 10 times the amount. That's probably dramatic, but like 3 times
Totally.
the amount.
And I think the Europeans kind of have something right in the fact that they like look for the quality of ingredients. And to tie this back to like
Right.
how we first kind of encountered each other and met, like the utilization of cheese, right? I don't want to sit down and like have a humongous plate of cheese and feel like, oh my gosh, like you do, this responsibility both ethically and conceptually, like I gotta finish this entire thing. I'm not gonna feel good for a few days if that's the case. But by
Mhm.
buying and sourcing like some really good ingredients, you get this emotional satiation from like eating this really good piece of cheese. And it doesn't have to be all the time. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to be all day and every day. Although,
Right.
some people
It was that weekend for
Oh my
me.
gosh, I know that was a bananas amount of cheese. I'm just gonna say like what?
I don't think I had regular food for 72 hours. Except for your lunch.
Yeah,
That was it.
I know. Like when we left the Art of Cheese, I know when we were kind of
Mhm.
making our commute back to southwestern Wisconsin, it was like I need juice. Like I need a
Yeah.
salad. I need levity in my diet right now because we
Mhm.
crushed cheese all weekend, and it was so fun. I mean, it was so rad to have
Oh,
all
not
yeah all those flavor profiles, all those amazing producers kind of coming together at once to really showcase,
Mhm.
one of the staple identity points of Wisconsin cuisine, which is our cheese.
Mhm.
But at the same
Mhm.
time, getting into that sustainability mindset, a little bit of Wisconsin cheese can go a really long way. And if you feel like,
Mhm.
tying in on the whole wheel, fine. Nobody here is going to judge you in the upper Midwest. Like, we get it. Sometimes you got to eat
Right.
it. But,
Mhm.
you can really moderate out both financially and emotionally, like the weight of that beautiful product, and use it in smaller portion sizes that, there are so many research studies out there that suggest that smaller portion sizes, you have lower risk of heart disease, you have greater longevity in
Mhm.
life, you're not constantly taxing your digestive system by filling it to the brim every single time you sit down. It's a very moderated
Mhm.
dose of wonderful. And I think we can all use
Mhm.
more moderated doses of wonderful in our lives. It really is the gift that we can give ourselves.
Mhm. Good timing. I'm doing a little Halloween thing later, and I'm making a huge charcuterie board.
Yeah.
But I actually have some cheeses that Wisconsin cheese had sent me, so I'm ready to do those. But I was talking to one chef, and I might have mentioned this on this podcast. I don't remember, but he told me that to take the leftover kind of cheeses and freeze them, and then use it in a cheese sauce later,
Sure.
or do some melted down and stuff. And that's so genius because charcuterie boards are one of the biggest wastes of food
Hmm.
ever, because you don't want to keep it because people are touching it,
It's right.
and kind of gross. But um,
Here's where we take a deep dive into like Olivia's phobias of like cross contamination and people touching her food. This is a good reminder to everyone out there listening to this. Please wash your hands uh,
yes, thank you,
as frequent as
thank you. I'm
possible.
gonna play this when people come in.
Yeah. Good. That's
Just
awesome.
wash your hands.
Please just wash your hands. It's cool. It takes 20 seconds to do it well. Everybody wins,
Mhm,
but especially Olivia. Yeah, like
mhm,
a couple things that, sometimes we'll do to kind of work around that is we'll do individually plated charcuterie boards. And that way it's like more moderated bites, because when you lay out those giant spreads, while it looks super awesome, by the time everybody kind of combs through
mhm.
it and you get to the end of it, it looks all beat up. And
Yeah.
then you are left with this task of like, okay, what do I do with this? One of the things that I've actually taken to when we cater is I always start with the cheese and charcuterie board, and it's big and splashy and beautiful. But then at the end of the night, I always do pizzas, wood fired pizzas, and I save all those
Oh,
scraps from the charcuterie board and the cheeses, and we do like these really
uh,
unique artisan pizzas with some of the best cheeses in the world and some of the best cured meats in the world, and like we find a way to repurpose all of that.
that is so genius. I don't know how have I never thought of that. That's so smart
Well, thank you.
because it melts down anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You you kill all the germs off, and
Yeah, it gets all the.
maybe a focaccia at the end of the night. You can do focaccia, put your fingers, dimple it. Of course, wash your hands, but like you can get all that beautiful bread action. And then as people, I'm not gonna suggest that you might overserve your guests, but like
As we talk about
it's
portion control.
possible. And yeah, exactly. Then everybody can have like a nice piece of like elegant focaccia made with the leftovers from Olivia's charcuterie board.
Okay. I love it. Sounds good. Wait, I want to hear more about your trip to Tokyo in Japan. Is that what you said you were doing? Were you filming
Yeah,
there?
yeah. Yes, yes. So we kind of uncovered this storyline with some friends of ours that Kikkoman, the soy sauce manufacturer
Okay.
that is available in like all over the United States and
Hmm.
North America and South America and Central America.
Hmm.
Their main production facility is actually in Wisconsin,
Oh, wow.
and I know it's kind of
So
crazy,
bizarre.
right?
Yeah.
So it is a little bizarre. They've been a Wisconsin corporation now for 50 years. So they actually made the jump over and internationalized before like Toyota did, before Sony. They kind of immersed themselves in the fabric of Americana, and they've been a Japanese corporation for 400 years.
Oh, wow.
So we started this dive into Kikkoman, like, why Wisconsin first and foremost?
Yeah.
Like, why, if you could choose anywhere on the
Yeah.
planet, would you choose to come here? And the answers for them are very, black and white, simple. First and foremost, we have like equidistant proximity to the coasts, both East Coast and West Coast, which, for most of us in the food world, is kind of the lifeline for being able to get the good people of Los Angeles and New York the products that they desire. But then putting it in a place with ample access to clean water, because water is an essential ingredient in making soy sauce. And then having access to like the local farmers, right? Like the soybean farmers, the wheat farmers that you need. And so they've built this world-class facility. And in order to get a better understanding of like soy sauce and soy culture, we flew to Tokyo and worked with Kikkoman in Noda City, is where their Japanese plant is located in Chiba.
Okay.
And Chiba has actually, that prefecture has been a sister state to Wisconsin since like the early 90s. So we kind of have like established roots and connections there. But then as we started taping, this amazing phenomenon occurred where we'd be going into, the izakayas and the Golden Guy in Shinjuku. And we'd find all these cultural connections between like people who had known of Wisconsin, either through the Milwaukee Brewers or the Packers or like the sports teams, like, oh yeah, but then like cheese, we actually found a pop-up cheese shop that was featuring American cheeses, which is kind of a rarity in Japan.
Yeah, what?
And yeah, they had Wisconsin cheese all over this place. And so when we came in, we're like, hey, we'd like to just do like a 2-hour interview segment and talk about like why this is important for the people of Japan.
Yeah.
There are so many like emerging cultural traditions that we take from each other. And they were enamored with the fact that like, oh my gosh, Andy Hatch, the man who produces Pleasant Ridge Reserve? Like this is, that's rock star status. And
I learned.
we kept finding, yeah, exactly. He is, right?
He
Oh
is.
my gosh. Was he wearing that jumpsuit? For those of you who weren't there for Andy's cheese tour, he was wearing like a Royal Tenenbaums Adidas jumpsuit with uplands on his. I was like, how do I get one of those, bro? Like,
He's
how
sick.
have you held me in the dark this long?
Yeah. He has some swag to
He's
him.
bananas.
I don't know. He's a cool dude.
He is. We give him a hard time all the time. The first like 10 times I met him, that dude wears like denim on denim on denim every single day of his life. And so I'm like, bro, you're dressed like a Canadian all the time, which is super cool. But like, how do you have so much swagger wearing denim on denim on denim? I kind of Instagram stalked him before the first time we did a dinner together. And he has this look of being casually disinterested, like kind of always,
Yes. That's
but he was like super casually disinterested on stage with Martha Stewart. I'm like, how can you be that cool? How can you be that cool? She works with Snoop Dogg. Give me a break, man. Show some emotion. It's the denim. It is. So, through the process of being able to go through and like capture these stories about why soy sauce is important and how that actually connects us, we actually left, Tokyo and Kyoto and Sendai feeling this overwhelming sense of, like the world is much smaller, actually, than we sometimes give it credit for. And although the Japanese culture and American culture are remarkably different, there still is this connective element of food and what we put in our bodies to nourish us and sustain us that we really do share with places all over the planet. And it was fantastic. I mean, Tokyo. Have you been to Tokyo?
I have not. It's on my list, though. I was just talking about it the other day. I want to go so bad.
you gotta go. I mean, it's like an assault on your brain, on your
Okay.
senses. I actually think it's brighter on some of the places in Tokyo at night than it is during the day. Like the sun is cool, but like having
Lights.
all these buildings light
Mhm.
up and just the humanity is just overwhelming. We did a taping pickup in this place called Shibuya Crossing.
Okay.
And Shibuya Crossing has the reputation of being the busiest intersection on the planet.
Okay.
So like every time the light changes and the pedestrians walk, and no one jaywalks in Japan.
Oh,
Like for
that'd be
whatever
nice
reason, it's
here.
just oh my gosh, right? Like
I've
how,
only hit
how
like 10
did you
people.
figure that out? But every time that light changes, 3,000 people estimated cross that intersection
Whoa.
at a time, right?
That's
And there are five intersections at this crossing. So it's like you
wow.
do the math and you're like, that's 15,000 people, which is almost more than I have in my entire home county, just kind of like all making their way across the street. So the executive producer Arthur Ursink, we were in Shibuya, and I was like feeling all the feels of like, oh my gosh, this is like LA on steroids. I mean,
Yeah.
this is so intense. And he's like, cool. I want you to go in the middle of the crossing the next time the light changes, and you're going to film the cold intro to the show. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, dude, come on, don't do that to me. You can't do me like this. You know that like this is going to be a tremendous amount of performance anxiety. First and foremost, like
Yeah.
we're one of a handful of Americans here. But
Mhm.
number two, like we've got the full camera crews, not like the
Oh,
YouTubers, holding up their cell phones and stuff, doing their little intros. He's like, yeah, but actually you get paid to do this, so you're going to go out there and do it. I was like, fine. You put it that way. I don't really have a choice.
yeah.
So yeah, we went out there and like I thought I got it on the first take. No, we did it again. It ended up being like the sequence of 15 cold openings
Wow.
that we filmed progressively. So we were like there through that many light changes. I know that we got the shot in one of the takes,
Mhm.
but I think it was just fun for the crew and for the producers to basically watch me kind of like emerge out of the shell of being like, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed. This is so
Mhm.
different from where I live and everything I've ever known, to being in like one of the busiest places on the planet. It was so rad.
Crazy.
So rad.
That's so cool. You
Yeah.
said LA on steroids. I was gonna say New York on speed, so that's funny.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. It's like America on drugs.
Oh, that's so fun though. Imagine like Luke gets hit by a car like during the intersection.
Right?
Or the
I
3,000 people.
know. I know. Exactly. It's like you have literal waves of humanity kind of crashing over you. And, the Japanese people, while they're no stranger to like technology and like
Yeah.
filming and all that, there is like a modicum of, a little bit of personal privacy. Like not everybody wants to be on camera all the time.
Right.
So, just being respectful. And also like a huge thing in Japan is like body and spatial awareness,
Mm.
which they're constantly chastising Americans for not having, because we're accustomed to like walking down the street and being loud and like doing whatever it is we kind
Correct.
of feel like we need to do in that moment.
Mhm.
And in Japan, that's very different. They don't share that same custom. So trying to feel my way through that as someone who brings, like I said, energy number one, and participate in that culture and in that society, while also making sure that we get everything we need for American television. It was super
Right.
rad. It was so
That's
fun.
so interesting. When is that coming out? Do you know?
Yeah, so that'll air. I want to say March, right around the time that we have another national production that I did some work on here in Wisconsin,
Okay.
and will also be coming out in March. I don't know. Have you ever heard of the cooking show Top Chef?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, you have. Okay, that's fantastic.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, Top Chef actually wrapped their taping in Wisconsin
Oh, cool.
as of a couple weeks ago. So we've had production crews all over the state, and they did an amazing job kind of showcasing some of the different culinary traditions that we hold, and bringing other chefs from places around the planet into this like love fest that we celebrate
Mm.
here in the Upper Midwest.
Oh, fun.
Those should all kind of coincide, and hopefully by mid March, Wisconsin's on the hearts and minds and lips of the dining populations all over the United States and world.
Oh, that's so exciting. I think I actually heard that when I was there because one of the staff members is on it. I think Abrielle maybe or something.
Yeah.
Gonna be on it.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. That's so exciting. Wow, I'm
Yeah.
gonna I have so many things to watch soon.
I know, right?
Yeah. I'm you overwhelmed in Tokyo and then Top Chef.
Yeah, some of it was just comical. Me in Tokyo or me on Top Chef was also kind of overwhelming.
Uh-huh.
I was just, it's a big production, and I definitely didn't want to tip it over, but maybe sort of kind of did. We'll see how it all comes out in
With
the
the
edit.
edit. See, when I'm overwhelmed, I kind of just get quiet, but do you
Yeah.
kind of do that or are you even better under pressure?
My creativity gets better under
Yeah.
pressure. Like, I think that's something that as a chef I've really come to appreciate and respect.
Mm-hmm.
When it turns up is usually when some of my better work comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Although people who cook with me would say that that's absolute garbage. I use that as like maybe an excuse for not being
Uh-huh.
as planned out and articulate as some of my colleagues are, but
Yeah.
it works for me, so that's cool. But yeah, to be honest with you, Olivia, I'm actually pretty introverted. So I go from like this stasis point of quiet and introspective,
Mm-hmm.
and really kind of taking in my surroundings and being very appreciative in those moments,
Mm-hmm.
to like having to explode with the energy and love. And I've learned in my career that it's always a balance and a harmony between the two.
Yeah.
The more introspective I can be, usually the better quality I'm able to put out of food or bringing people into that moment with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it was a lot, and we were running like 14 to 16 hours a day in our
Oh, wow.
production schedule. So it
That's
was
long.
just like go, 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 go. And by the end of the trip, it was, before the jet lag, feel like my brain was absolutely cached. After the jet lag, as you can see, like I'm a stumbling, fumbling mess.
No, you're
It
talking
is what
really
it
well.
is.
You're totally fine.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
You are.
I've had
You
a
are.
lot of coffee.
All right. So I have a short game for you to wrap up the entire podcast if you're up for it.
I'm down like a fat man on a seesaw.
Okay. I liked it. So I'll say 5 popular foods or food trends right now, and then you'll tell me if you're for or against or smash or pass kind of deal.
Okay.
Cool. Also, these are the most random I've done because I literally just thought them in my brain last night, if I'm being honest. So random.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, so you and I have that same creative connection. Like, the pressure helps.
This was my midnight brain thinking. Okay. First one, fried chicken sandwiches.
Smash.
Solid. All right. Second, dried seaweed.
Pass.
Me too.
Yeah. It's okay.
Third one, fried Oreos.
Pass.
That's interesting. I don't really like them either, but a lot of people do. So
Yeah, no, and I don't judge anybody for that. It's just like, when is too much of a good thing a bad thing? Like,
yeah,
just because we
that's
can deep fry it doesn't mean that we necessarily should. I was on a taping this summer at the Wisconsin State Fair, and they handed me, I have no idea the demographic that follows this podcast, but they handed me a dill dog. A dill
oh,
dog at the Wisconsin
okay.
State Fair is a dill pickle that's been hollowed out, and it has a hot dog shoved in it, and then they put
Oh
it in
no.
the corn dog batter and fry it right? And like I had to almost unhinge my jaw to get that thing in. You know, the B-roll and like the outtakes of that scene are
That
going to
was so
be
funny.
magnificent. Yeah. But you know, I definitely like, okay, you can deep fry it. Let's not go crazy. And I kind of feel that Oreos are great. Fried foods have their place, but they don't always have to, you know, we don't have to do it,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
That's just
that's
slutty.
a
Come
no
on.
from me. No from me. Wow.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So now I have to watch you eat that
Yeah.
Tokyo in Top Chef. Okay, I have a lot to do.
Yeah.
Number 4, eggnog. It's timely.
Ooh. Me encanta la eggnog. I love it. It's I mean, I get it. Some people don't like it. There's like textural issues. You know, you're kind of drinking this like, is it
Mhm.
raw? Is it cooked? But eggnog is kind of my jam. Although I can have like the smallest quantity of it and still feel like it go down my throat and like straight onto my ass. It's well, I don't eat very much of it, but because it's just gonna make me feel bad about myself if I go too ham. But like, yeah, it's delicious.
Sometimes when I'm eating dessert, I'm like, I could feel it going straight to my ass, you know?
Do you smash or pass on eggnog?
I I'm gonna pass, but I can't say I've tried it. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think I've actually tried it because I always just assumed it'd be a pass. And I hate those kind of people. So now I need to try
That's
it.
all right. I'm going to do some of the world's best eggnog. My homies at
Okay.
Organic Valley, every year around the holiday, they put out eggnog, and it is the jam.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
Okay,
I like hot
cool.
chocolate, but it has to be like good hot chocolate, you know?
Right. You don't want any of that swaggy stuff.
Yeah. No, I like
Yeah.
the real chocolate, you know.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 5, final one, cranberry sauce.
Yeah, smash all day. Wisconsin is the leading producer of cranberries in the entire world. So, like, I would lose my
I did
Wisconsin.
know that. Mhm.
Yeah, I'd lose my Wisconsin card if I said pass on cranberry sauce. Although I will say, like, I'm not a super huge fan of like, you know, when you open it up, if you get it in a can, if you're, you know, like,
Yeah.
you get it and you like dump it and it still holds the shape of the can. That's
Uh-huh.
kind of grody.
Yeah.
And I always feel like I can taste the can. But if you've ever had like homemade or well-made cranberry sauce, it can be divine.
And I just heard a story about that. That's actually why I remembered that it's one of the leading producers because I was writing a story that you could use frozen instead of fresh, and it might be a little bit cheaper for
Yeah,
people to use. But yeah, the canned stuff, it like jiggles and it's all gross.
seriously. You just want to tap it a couple times just to, you know, it's like hitting the wine bag. You're like, ah, I got to do it. Sorry. Whack, whack,
Whoa,
whack. Yeah.
flashback to college. Whoa.
Yeah. Slapping the wine bag. Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so satisfying.
All right, my last and final question for you that I ask every guest. If there is one cooking appliance or utensil that you think everyone should splurge on, what would it be and why?
Hmm. Cooking utensil that everyone should splurge on. Well, I mean, like the easy go to are good knives. So, like, this is the most like chef driven thing in the world. But I've definitely held the position for a long time that knives often change the way I approach food. And whenever I'm feeling kind of burnt out on like cooking or like, oh my gosh, I don't really want to like tackle all that prep work, I get a new knife and suddenly like the food is alive and I can't wait to experience it through the lens of that new utensil and piece of cooking equipment. And then I get like all geeked out on making sure that it stays like super razor sharp. And you know, it's kind of a swagger piece when you braid it out. You're like, check this
Mhm.
thing out, you know. So if you're feeling like you want to really get to know a piece of equipment, you can
Mhm.
utilize it every day. You can utilize it on special occasions. You can utilize it only when like you want to prepare the most articulate vegetables or fruits or, you know, meats that you can afford in your budget. Always
Mhm.
go with a new piece, a new shank You really can't go wrong. So I would say that's my safe answer. How was
I
that?
love the Shank reference. That's hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, kitchen culture and prison culture, while I want to say it's very far apart, the mentality is kind of, very close.
So funny. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out, even though you're jet lagged, and I appreciate it.
No, this has been a riot. You're a good human, Olivia. I appreciate you. I appreciate you taking the time to come to Wisconsin and see who we are and what we do, and
Mhm.
how much love and attention to detail really goes into the food that we produce here. And I'm so honored and thrilled with the opportunity to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. You're really wonderful, and I hope people take something from this conversation. At the very least, that they should visit Wisconsin. So.
Amen, sister. Bring them on. We'd love to have them.
All right, so you can check out Luke on Instagram at forever_wis, which is short for Wisconsin, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Or watch Wisconsin Foodie on YouTube or PBS. What time is it normally on?
7:30 Thursday nights.
Love it. Hey, fellow foodies. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to leave me a review. And while you're at it, make sure to follow me at Livvin for Food Pod on Instagram or TikTok, or email me at livvinforfoodpod@gmail.com. Let me know what you're cooking up this week, which guests you would like to see on the podcast, or tell me your opinions on the latest viral food trend. Until next time.